This is the Ian Show, and I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. We got another great show. We have in-studio guest Richard Yaker, and he has been talking to us about his practical laws of attraction. He is a life coach that enjoys sharing so many things that he has learned that can be used practically by everyone. Hey, practically, I worked that in. Richard, thanks again for being with us.
My pleasure.
So, in our first segment, we talked about two different things. One thing we had mentioned was everyone has survived situations and are surviving still. So you would want to find that one thing that helps you survive. And then once that's isolated, move on to finding what brings you joy. And then have that be your center point to bring you continuous joy, I suppose. Am I summing that up kind of correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know these are just generalities. You know, I know the human consciousness is grand and every individual is. But these are a couple of points that we can use every day and for everyone. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, since we're using this fictitious person, so yeah, they felt that the world was against him. Let's continue with that. And now they've thought, well, okay, this one thing has really helped me survive. I got that, and now I'm going on to joy. You know, I'm an artist or whatever it is, and producing this thing gives me joy. So now their day is a little brighter. They're a little more cheerful. What's another step that this person can, go to? Actually, we're looking for the transformation, because that's the ultimate end result. Am I correct?
Yeah. So at this point, things are starting to get better, but probably there are false beliefs that they've built up over a lifetime.
Nice.
The first one was life sucks and I'm a depressed person, and finding what got them through stuff helps get over that false belief.
Okay.
But then there are all kinds of other false beliefs. I mean, we take everything's about interpretation.
Yes.
And so, something your mother said to you when you were 10 years old, you interpreted a certain way and became how you saw yourself.
Yes.
Or a teacher said something to you and you took that in the wrong way, different than they meant it, and most of the time those kind of things are taken internally in a negative way, and then that becomes your self-image for the rest of your life. Or there are things about that are kind of broader than that, economic stuff.
Yes.
We've been in this recession for a while. We're in down economic times.
Yes.
But if even if you look back at the Great Depression, there were people that succeeded during that.
Yes.
And so when you kind of take your eyes off, you stop reading the news, because that's a perspective, and then that becomes part of your reality. Oh, they say that the economy's bad. So once you start reading too much that the economy's bad, you believe the economy's bad.
Yes.
But if you kind of, if you stop watching the news and you stop reading the newspaper,
yes,
and you start paying attention, doing this stuff to get more joy, and you start paying attention, you find out that the economy's not so bad. Things are more on sale now, or whatever. And so there are, even within something as big as the economy, there are beliefs that we build up that don't serve us. They don't help us in our day-to-day life or being practical.
Right.
And so once, this progression of, okay, so life doesn't suck, and now I found how I could have joy and spend part of my day enjoying myself.
Yes.
Now, what parts of my life do I now want to change, and do I want those to get better? Now, overall, things are getting a little better, but now you can start to get more refined in your process.
Nice.
And start to look at the areas in your life that you want even more improvement in.
Yes.
Whether they're relationship stuff, whether you're in one and it's not going well, or you're looking to meet somebody. Or, you know, you want more money and you want better economic stuff going on for you.
Yes.
So all of those kind of things, you know, the next level is then kind of figuring out what you believe about that stuff. In my coaching, although my website is called Practical Law of Attraction, and it's kind of general about practically applying the law of attraction, I found that a lot of the people I've coached have come about relationships.
Okay.
And so, just as an example, so, you know, we grow up watching our parents, either they got divorced or they were married and fought a lot and are still married and fight a lot, or
Yes.
or various different combinations of those kind of things.
Yes.
Rarely, even in a good marriage, are, you know, in the past, based on societal kind of stuff, are what our families what we would call functional. Most families are dysfunctional.
Right. Yes.
And so that becomes what you believe about families and relationships and stuff. Excuse me. And then, you know, we read in books or we see movies about romance and people meeting people, and, you know, we want to meet somebody and have a great relationship. But our definition of relationship is this thing that nobody would want to be in, because we've only seen these crappy relationships in our past.
Yes. Or we see these made-up ones in movies, and An Affair to Remember, or Sleepless in Seattle.
So we want those made-up ones.
Yes.
But what we really think of relationships is this kind of messed up thing.
Yes.
And so that's a good example of, you know, what I end up would do with a client is to have them kind of write out all the things they really think about a relationship. Why do you want one, and what do you really believe about one?
Nice.
You know, and
Yes.
and when you come back with this piece of paper that you've written all this stuff on, you're like, I'm insane. I want a relationship, but I think that in a relationship I can't be myself. Or
Right.
I want a relationship, but I believe that I have to give up my dreams. Or,
Yes.
you know, and none of the... So once you've done that kind of thing and you realize there's all these conflicting ideas going on,
Yes.
you could then start to attack those ideas and figure out which ones are false and which ones should be put aside because they're getting in your way.
Yes.
And those kind of same things work for anything.
Yes.
You want your dream job, but you believe working for the man is bad, or you know, stuff like that.
Yes.
That then gets in the way of having your dream job, because you get your dream job and then you're still unhappy because you have to work for a boss.
Right.
Even though the boss is a nice guy and whatever,
Yes.
you're busy looking at it through that lens of, you know, I don't want to work for the man.
Right.
So there's all of those kind of things that we don't consciously think of every day, but they get in our way. And
Yes.
so when you decide an area of your life that you want to improve, you start to look at those things and really uncover them and really start to define, you know, what do I really believe here? And
Yes.
most of the time when you write that kind of stuff out, you realize, you know, I'm kind of schizophrenic. I say I want this, but I believe this about that thing. Why would I want it then?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Interesting. You know, that's great. You know, I hear totally what you're saying. For me, correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of heard 2 points in there. One was basically clean house. You know, do a house cleaning, and as you clean house, you're going to find something, and that's probably... Well, yeah, you're going to find a lot of things, but you may find something and you think, well, what do I believe about this thing? Does it have value, or does it not have value? And if it doesn't have value, throw it out. And if it has value, you might be able to go to the Antiques Roadshow and realize I just got $1 million worth of masterpiece here. I didn't know it was up in the attic. So is that but you have to analyze it and assess it. Does it have value, and find out what you personally believe in it, and then build from there.
Right? Does it serve me?
Okay.
Does this belief serve me? Does it help me get what I want? I have a friend, and a really close friend, and he's now married with a child, and he's married to a girl he'd tell you is his dream girl. And but in the past, and being a friend, I did a lot of coaching with him.
Yes.
Just talk to my friend,
yeah, right.
whatever. But there was a point in he's a musician, and in a previous relationship, the girl he was with was very needy, and she believed that when he wasn't actually at work making money, that she should get all his time.
Wow.
And that meant that he couldn't, if he wanted to go off in the garage and play his guitar, she wasn't happy about it.
Right.
And so that started to become his definition of a relationship. If I'm in a relationship, I have to sacrifice playing a guitar and getting to be me. And what I talked to him about is that was the definition of a bad relationship. And what you want is to meet somebody and not settle down and find somebody until they like your guitar playing and they want you and they like the music you create.
Right.
And so they'll have their own things they want to do.
Yes.
And they'll allow you to go off in the garage and play music, and they'll also appreciate the music that you write.
Right.
And so there was healing involved in realizing, I've been building up this definition of relationship as I have to give up me.
Right.
To, I shouldn't be in a relationship until I can be in a relationship where I can be me.
Right.
And once he kind of got over that, he started, he became very discerning in his dating and realizing right away this person's not right for me, until he found the person that appreciated those things about him and he could settle down with that person. So
going all the way back to the beginning, by this point here, you are already more in a positive state of mind. And when you're cleaning house first, that's one of the things. Once you find these treasures or these items that you need to discard, either one, you start cutting off the energy of the negative one, and then the positive one starts to build, and that's where the law of attraction starts coming in, because now you're learning, what do I think about this? How do I appreciate this? And then that builds up energy, and then hence in a good relationship, like we were discussing, brings about or attracts that similar energy to you.
Correct.
Look at that. And I know that, again, that's thing that's practical, that makes sense. We've all read these think positive, and and inner thoughts are things, and everyone's read that, but these are things that you're discussing that are practical, that make sense.
Yeah, it's about being it's also about being authentic, because a lot of those books about being positive and stuff, if you're just saying positive things but what's still going on in your head is negative, that doesn't help you. There's a lot of statements like fake it till you make it and that kind of stuff, and those don't really work.
Right. Or if anyone who's been in a long-term relationship with that Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw, love means never having to say you're sorry. Oh boy, you haven't been in a relationship very long. that means that's right up there with I love you. I'm sorry. If you don't know that one, forget it. Hey, Richard, again, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. All right. Hey, well, you've been listening to the In Show, and we have in-studio guest Richard Yaker, and he's been talking about his practical laws of attraction. And we're going to have a little more of him in our next segment, too, so you got to stick around for that. We'll be right back. And this is the In Show. And I'm your host, Gus Summer. It's good to be back with you today. We have a great show. And we have in-studio guest Richard Yaker, and he's been talking about his practical law of attraction. Richard, want to give you an opportunity to give your web address and any information that you'd like our listeners to find out about.
So my website is http:// practical-law-of attraction.com, or you can also add dash coach to the end of that before the .com. I have both of those addresses. And I'm also, Practical Law of Attraction has a Facebook page as well.
Nice. I know you're also on Twitter. Does the Practical Law of Attraction have a Twitter?
No, I use my my name is Richard Yaker, so R Yaker, RYAKER is my Twitter address.
Okay, awesome. Well, you know, it's I know having you on the show, especially right now, you know, like I mentioned earlier, get a lot of people who you know ask questions. And I thought this was perfect because it gives them a tool to help them overcome, especially right now. You know, a lot of negative thoughts. You know, a lot of negativity going around. So one of the things, let me wrap up, and we can, and I'll let you go ahead and conclude. One of the things that we talked about is find out what tool you have that's enabled you to survive, and another one is find what brings you joy. And after that joy is that you, and I can see the progression. I can see it because you're looking at the vast landscape. Okay, this one little thing is helping. You clicking something, using that kind of like a step, and then out of that you find what gave me joy. It's that, and now you're going. Okay, now I got to clean, and now you're kind of cleaning house, and then you find something in particular in all this. I don't want to call it a mess, but you know, in this vastness. And you discard that which is negative, and you find that which has true value, and you concentrate on the good things because that is where that energy lies. Am I right? And that you start concentrating on that, and that's where the practical law of attraction really comes manifest. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you start to see evidence of this.
Yes,
I mean, none of this is about, you know, and I'm not trying to badmouth religion, but faith is a word that's used a lot in religion, and my definition of faith, and I think some people would agree with this, is it's believing something you can't prove,
right?
And holding on to that and saying I have faith, even though I don't have proof of this thing. I'm going to believe it, and it's going to help me.
Yes.
And this isn't something that you have to have faith in. This is something that you can. That is practical, that you can start to practice, and then see results. And if the results are coming along with what you're working on, and as your feelings improve, and you start to be in a better mood, that things start to get better, you know, then it's not about believing something that's pie in the sky, that you don't believe, that you don't have proof of. You start to have proof in your own life.
Yes, and that's a big thing, because the person you want to affect is you, and so anyone else can tell you. Well, it's that old adage, and you can lead the horse to water, but until it's sunk into your consciousness, you're not going to really believe it or support it or get behind it. So until you see a practical result from your practical application, the practical law of attraction, might as well keep going there. Good things go in 3. Then you will continue in that. Then your joy will continue, and you'll continue to clean the house. Because I can imagine, being a computer guy, we all know what it's like when we defragment our computer. You know, once we clean all that out, how fast does our computer run? So we can imagine, you know, the human consciousness, like we had mentioned earlier, is so vast. How much is in there that we got to clean out? And this is basically what you're telling us to do a defragmentation of our consciousness, but by picking out certain things that are positive to start attracting, because that's the main point, attracting positiveness to our lives.
Yeah, and again, it's very practical, and you know, the universe, and there are all kinds of statements about what the universe supports, but the universe doesn't discern between positive and negative. Nice. And so one of the an analogy one of my teachers uses is about watering the weeds. And if you go out in your yard and you see weeds, and you're like, oh, there's this weed here, and you're standing there with the watering can looking at the weed while the water's coming out of the watering can on the weed, then that weed just grows, and you come back out and you're like, I don't like weeds, but there's this weed here, and so what we give attention to gets bigger in our lives, and
Yes.
you could, even before you get things going in the right direction, you could even see how this works by looking at it in the other direction. You don't want it to go that way, but if you look, when were things going bad in my life? What was
Yes.
going on in my head?
Right.
What did I focus on?
Yes.
When you can't find your keys and you start looking and getting kind of crazy, I can't find my keys. That just makes it worse. Then you really can't find your keys.
Right.
But if you relax and you walk away, then all of a sudden there are your keys. And somewhere you probably already looked and didn't see them.
Yeah, that's great.
Or people like, you're working on something and you can't find the answer, and so you start making yourself crazy about that, and then later you're relaxing and you're in the shower,
Right.
and it comes to you.
Yes.
Those are all proof of this kind of concept that,
Right.
when you're making yourself nuts and you're in a bad space, things don't go well.
Yes.
And when you relax and you get in a better space, things do go well.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Something that just came to mind. We talked about, after the house cleaning, that you find something and you isolate it. And I can already assume the answer, but I want to find out from you. Is it necessary to isolate something, or maybe you can just tell, I have a negative perspective of some kind for some reason, or I'm just generally negative. I'm not going to look for anything particular. Jimmy, when I was 3 years old on the swing, did this to me, or Jenny did this to me.
You don't have
Can
to
I
find
just boom, cut it off?
Yeah, you don't have to find what happened and what caused that perspective.
Yes.
You just have to not focus on it anymore.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the times that comes to you, and you're like, oh, that's where that happened.
Yeah.
And that does sometimes happen as part of the house cleaning process.
Yes.
But it's not necessary.
Yes.
I mean, that's what a lot of, and again, I'm not bad-mouthing psychologists, but like when you sit and you talk about all the bad things that happen to your life, you're just focusing on those bad things.
Yes.
So there's no need to go back in time and find out where, who said what to you that made you think this about yourself, or think this about in 5th grade, some girl didn't want to kiss you, and now girls don't like you, or whatever kind of crazy ideas you come up with. You don't have to go back to those things to figure out what they are.
Yes.
To know that idea, that feeling about yourself doesn't serve you,
Yes.
and to move on from it.
Yes, and right now, as we're talking about this, and the conversation's flowing, and I can see, using that example, back in 5th grade, little Susie didn't, hold my hand, or she didn't walk in line. Now girls don't like me. Well, that's probably not the case, because I'm sure throughout your life, you've been on a date, or women do interact with you. You've just seen through a lens that they don't like you. Just like you were saying, just cut it out. There's bound to be someone loves you besides your mom and your sister. And you look for that, but you're focusing on just in a general. You don't need to know that it's Susie, but that this, it's wrong. Of course, people are going to like you. So you just say, hey, and you focus on the good thing. So I guess that's would that be a good ending spot where you don't necessarily have to.
You don't have to dig up your past to get past things. You don't have to find where your dad said, life isn't fair, or money's the root of all evil. To know that those things are to get past what those things are doing to you and what they're causing, what negative they're causing in your life now.
So you can just say, well, my life isn't how I had envisioned it, so let me start from this point with, let me just start thinking positive, and start trying to track those things, and I'm sure the negative things will start creeping up by themselves. They're going to rear their ugly head, and then you just plop them off as they do. But think, from this point off, I am a good artist, or I am a good person, or men, women like me, or whatever it is. And when that negative thought creeps in, there's your house cleaning, there's your isolating it, and then but meanwhile, overall, be positive.
Right.
have a good, positive point of view. What?
And you know, and some of those things you run into, and they're tough to deal with, and
Yes.
that's where there are people to help, like me, coaches out there
Yes.
that you
Yes.
know, when you want help getting through one of those ideas, or you're not sure, you know, it's not clear, it's murky what the bad idea, what the negative thinking is that's in your way. There are
Right.
people to help.
Yes, yes, like you. That's great. That's great advice. You know, Richard. You know, we're down to the last little bit. You know, thank you for coming in. You know, I know it's giving me great insight. I know it's great insight for others. You know, thanks again. You know, surely appreciate it, and love to have you back sometime
Cool.
soon.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, thanks again. All right, well, this is Gus Summers, and you've been listening to the In Show, and we had in studio guest Richard Yaker, and of course, you'll be able to find him and his Practical Law and Traction on Facebook, and of course here at theinshow.com we'll have links to his pages and of course all the great stuff that he's doing. And you know what? Be sure to look for us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, all those great places to find out what we're doing. And we're definitely going to have another great show for you next time. So you hang in there, spread the love. We'll see you next time.